Hey guys, welcome back. It's Brad here, and we're going to be talking about paints in this video, specifically the paint that you'll be using in my beginning watercolor class. So if you're signed up for my class, these are the paints that I have chosen for us. They are the Van Gogh or Van Gogh watercolor paints from Royal Talens. So these are the paints that we're going to use. I've never used them before. So whenever you use a new paint, and for us, you know, this is beginning watercolor class, we got to figure out what these paints can do. So one of the first things that I like to do whenever I'm working with new paints, I just got to put it on paper first and just to see what those colors actually look like on paper. Because as you can imagine, what's on the tube, the color that's on the tube or whatever, doesn't always correspond to what comes out in the form of the pigment, okay, that's inside here. So just be aware of that. So this was from a test that I did from a different set. It was a very inexpensive set that we used, and that's what happened. And you know, it's cool. So I like doing these little color samples too, and I always like to kind of play around with the you know, as like a little wash. Like, what does it look like when it's a little bit more thinned out? You know, so that's a good thing to do. Then what I like to have all my students do, whenever we're working with new paints and a new set, in this case, for most of us, we've never mixed watercolors before at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to mix all of our paints together just to see kind of how they interact. And so we're going to make this chart of kind of rows and columns of these paints. And so you got, like, you know, your Indian yellow here, and then mix it with cerulean blue here, and ultramarine blue, and so on. So you do that here, and then you got your Indian yellow, your cerulean blue, and ultramarine blue, and so on, going down this way. And so what you end up happening is you get to mix all your colors, and you get to mix them twice. All right, so this is like you get cerulean blue with Indian yellow, and then this is also cerulean blue with Indian yellow, but you can mix them differently. You know, one, you can mix them on your palette and then apply it directly to the paper, or you can mix them on the paper together and you get different results. You can also do it by layering one over the other, you know, like cerulean blue, like a wash over the Indian yellow, or vice versa, the Indian yellow over the cerulean, and you'll end up with slightly different results. And so it's kind of good to kind of experiment. So anyway, it's good just to at least just see what your colors look like when you mix them together, because for a lot of us, we've never mixed colors before. That's why this is a beginning watercolor class. And so just doing that is going to give us a lot of stuff to think about, and it's going to give us a lot of really valuable information. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to have this set up. This is my chart, and I'm going to do that here in just a moment. But you can see I've already got it charted out. I've put in our set here that we're going to be using in class, we've got 10 colors. So we've got 10 you know, rows this way. I got 10 columns going down here, and so I'm going to mix each one with each other. Now in here you can see this is where the color meets the other color. So this would just be the pure hue or whatever that color may be. And so I put this micron pen, kind of half of the space in there with micron pen, cover it up, just to see like how if it's opaque or if it's translucent. And if it's a very translucent watercolor, you know, you'll just go right over this, and you'll be able to see the micron pen just clear as day through it. Sometimes you might get some that are semi-opaque or opaque, and they might start to cover the micron pen. So just being able to kind of experience that and see what these colors can do will be valuable information to us, because that also helps us when we are mixing colors and when we're doing our paintings, to understand how if a paint is translucent or a little bit more opaque, and there's different variations of that. And then we got another thing that I'm going to do in here. I think I'm going to lift out maybe part of it, so I'm going to see like the staining power of each watercolor. So this is just a chart of experiments, you know, so we're just going to see what these can do. In fact, I even masked off a section in here that I'm just going to play around with. Just do kind of wet on wet, dry and layering, and just kind of play with the colors. And I encourage you guys to do that as well, just to get familiar with your colors and see what they can do, and just to kind of, you know, if this is your first time putting paint to paper, there's a learning curve to that. Like, how much water do you put in? You know, do you mix with the paint? Like, you know, so all of that, it's good to kind of just have a little practice area in here just to kind of see that. A lot of times people will, they're not always consistent. You know, they'll make one really watery, maybe one less watery, you know, so it's why we practice. And we'll do this before we do the color wheel. So it's good to have some practice. And then the other thing I'm going to do before we get started, I'm going to show you guys how to set up a palette. And this is the palette that we have for the class. Again, there's different palettes and there's different things, and we've talked a little bit about that already. But this is the palette that we've got, and there's 9 wells in here. And so we've got 10 colors. So what I suggest doing, and what we're going to do here is, I pulled these out of the box already so you can see this. We have a Chinese white in here. That's what this one's called. That's the manufacturer name for it. But if we look on the side, we can actually see it is pigment P, which stands for pigment, and then the W stands for white, and then it's 4. So this is PW4. So this will be, if you look at other manufacturers, you'll see a PW4. That should be the same as this. They might call them different things, but that's how you can kind of tell. And so, you know, always look at the manufacturer. They'll always say, like, they'll say cobalt blue. You don't know what's in here necessarily. You have to look on the side here, and it'll say, this is, what is it? It'll be P for pigment, and then B for blue. So it'll be PB, and then this one should be 28, PB 28. And so you can kind of compare other cobalt blues from other manufacturers, and you will get to see that. So we're gonna, I should probably do another video where we just read like the side of these labels so you guys can know what these things mean. But we'll save that for another time. Okay, but for now, what we've got in here is, I think we'll do these 9 colors. Now there's a couple different ways when you guys are setting up these videos, setting up your palettes. I'm making a video, all right, because I'm trying to. There's different theories that go on in doing this, and you guys can set it up however you want. What I'm gonna set up what I recommend works best for most students in the class. All right. Again, you can choose to do things however you want, but I like to set it up so it's like semi-permanent. So each color is going to have its kind of home in here. So you're not going to just rinse out all of your paint at the end of every session. That would get expensive really quickly. So you can set up some watercolor in each well, and then if it runs out, you can always add more into that well. So I'm going to show you guys what I recommend. And really, I would just probably say, just go along the edge with what you got in here. You've got a couple yellows, you've got a couple reds, 2 or 3, depending on if you consider this burnt sienna a red or not. And then you've got a couple blues, you got a green, and then you've got a Payne's gray in here as well. So I just suggest, just as they come right out of the package, just put them in here, just along here. And I think that would work for most people in this class. And then if you want to use white, which is a different story altogether, a lot of the purest watercolors, they'll say don't use white at all. I have no problem using a little white. I don't, so it's up to you. But if you do need to use it, I would say you could just always add it in later, just like on your palette up here, and you can mix it around as needed. But it doesn't need its own well. Okay, so that would be my suggestion for setting up your palette. I will have that as we move on to the next part of this video, which is coming up right now. All right, so I just started this video, and I had to stop because I forgot something. One thing I wanted to go over really quickly was when you get your brush, like I haven't used these yet, but they come with these little plastic tubes on them to protect them. When they're kind of got a little bit of glue in them, right off the bat. So like sometimes people like they try to like loosen them up just with their hands and start smashing them and stuff. Look, don't do that. Just get some, like your water, kind of just slosh it around in there just a little bit, and the glue, that little bit will come out, and then your brush will work. Okay, so don't just start smashing it in there. Just kind of loosen it up gently, and you can just kind of touch the side of your water cup if you need it. All right, and then I started to put these in, and then I realized I didn't have everything I needed, so I wanted to start over again. I basically, again, I'm going to leave out the white. I'm going to go put my yellows in. Now I'll get my reds. So I've got kind of a cool yellow, a warmer yellow. This is my warmer red here. And again, when you look at the names of these, you know, it says like permanent red light on here. It's the thing that the name, the real thing that's important isn't what's written on here. It's actually, sorry, I'll flip this around. It's actually this part. It'll say like pigments. This is what's telling. This is the ingredients on here. All right, so this is what it's telling you it is. It's PR, with the P again stands for pigment, and the R stands for red, and then this is number 255 on there. All right, so that's telling you the actual pigments that are used in here. That's actually the only thing that really matters for this. So again, you can look at all these other ones. I'm not going to do it right now. We're just going to put this video together really quick before it gets too long. All right. So you got a warm red. So now I'm just going to speed this video up. You guys know what to do. Just put the rest of your colors in. We've got the ultramarine, the cerulean, the viridian, and what was the other one? There's the viridian, and oh yeah, burnt sienna, and then the Payne's gray here in the end. Okay, get those on there. Again, you can put them in whatever order you want. This is just kind of pretty logical, and I think it will work best for most people. Okay, moving on. Okay, so one more quick thing before we get started on putting out our color test chart. When you, just like mixing paint in general, so sometimes beginners, you know, they just start like they just squirted this pigment right into these wells, and then they just start pulling out from it and trying to paint with that. That's not how they're meant to be used. These are watercolors, so you use water with them. So you borrow like a little bit of this, you add water to it, okay? So you can pull this out with water. And so you're not meant to paint with this like just straight out of the tube. You add water to it. Now if you add more water to it, the more kind of less saturated that it becomes. And so you got to kind of find kind of where that happy medium is. You know, obviously I think this is a little bit too weak down here, but if you add a little bit more kind of pigment to it, it's looking better. All right, and so I'm just kind of showing you guys this. You want to find a nice kind of consistency for when we start putting these colors on here. So this was that permanent red light, and so that's this one right here, this PR 255. So I'm just going to do a little test on here. That's what that color is. If I want, I could do that over here as well. Might as well. Okay. So, and if you really want to, you could add just a touch of water to that too. So I'm gonna lighten that up a lot actually. It says it's, oh yeah, see, look at this. Why did I pick this one at the first? This one says it's semi-transparent. See that? That's what that little square is. That there's a line through it. That means it's semi-transparent. So anyway, I'll make sure not to do that here where it's semi-opaque with that yellow. All right, so just thin that out just a little bit in here. Okay, we're just doing our these tests. This, what it looks like, it doesn't really matter too much. Again, this is just practice. This is just information for ourselves. In fact, here, let's try this. I'm going to suck up this, see how well it stains. Oh, okay. See, I lifted that. You can go back in and kind of play with that color a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start kind of putting some of these in. I trust that you guys can do this at home. I'm not going to do like a whole, however long this is going to take me to do. I will show you guys some other steps kind of along the way, but I'm just assuming that you guys can do this. So, all right. What I'm trying to do is trying to make these like slightly uneven in a way, so you can kind of see some of these other ones that they're like, wow, they're not painted very evenly. I'm doing that on purpose. And so if I want to, let's just say, I grab just a touch more of the yellow here, and maybe I'll just kind of drop that in part of it, just so you can kind of see what it does in there. That's when you drop a kind of a loaded brush into a wet area, that's called charging. And so that's kind of what I did there. But you get kind of a variety. You get to see like a lot of different things that are going on in there. And then you can take that, and you can do also, just like I said, you can do a very light wash. That same, this is that same color, just it kind of looks a little different on here. And you know, you can blot out like a section of it if you want. You can kind of play with these, so you can kind of see what they can do. So let's just finish this column while we're rolling here. So take some of this, and again, you gotta clean your brush every time, so you kind of keep these semi clean. And then when you also just FYI, when your water gets fairly colored, you should change it. I was told when I was in school, like, when it looks like Kool-Aid or it looks like something you'd want to drink, that's when you know you need to change it. I don't know if they said that just so I wouldn't drink it, but I don't know. But it seems like good advice. So that's why I like to have two water containers too. One's like kind of like a dirty rinse, and then one's kind of getting clean water. But you know, it's up to you guys how you want to do it. But yeah, you should clean your water when it starts getting a little dirty, kind of murky in there. All right, so anyway, that's kind of where we're at. If you want to charge it with some, and then you get to kind of play in these areas too when you work like this. You get to learn more than just like filling in. It doesn't just become like an assignment where you're filling in these in. You're really getting to like play and learn by doing these. So okay, I'm going to keep going, but I know that you guys don't need to watch me do it all, so I know you guys can do it. Okay, so one thing that you might do as you're mixing these up, you can see I've made a little progress since you last saw. But one thing that you might do is you might start running out of room on your palette, and if that's the case, you know, sometimes you can just grab. You don't have to wash out, like, don't put your whole palette under water. But I just grab, you know, your brush, and I just kind of swirl around some of those colors that are on there, get them really wet, and then I just take a paper towel and then just wipe it down, and it'll suck up the paint. Is it perfect? No, I'm just going to be mixing more colors, but I just cleared out a little space so I have some room to make some more colors. I just kind of wanted to show you, excuse me, as I'm going around, like I keep going kind of, like I put the color, whatever color, this is the cerulean blue, and so I put it in here, and then I just kind of work my way down. So when I'm mixing my white and my cerulean blue, I put them both in here, and then when I mix my yellows, I put them, so I can just do them at the same time. That way I can also play around with the colors just a little bit. You know, I can make one slightly more saturated. Like if you look at these colors, like this one's a little bit more green, that one's a little bit more yellow. It just gives you just a little bit of variety. And so you can kind of play, like right here, this is a lot more saturated, this one's a lot more weak. You know, I'm charging in some areas. Like what that means is like just kind of dropping in some loaded like paint into an area and let it kind of like disperse, just to get some different effects in here. And I just want to, like, because I really want to just see what these colors can do. And then, like I said, when I saw that this cerulean blue, when it said PB 15 and PW 6, I was like, man, I don't think this is going to be transparent like it said it was going to be, because I know that PW 6 is that pigment white 6. It's an opaque white paint. And so I just like, this isn't going to be totally translucent. And so you can see, like, even when I went over this area, yeah, it covered quite a bit. Maybe not as much as this one, but they are, some of them cover. And even like this PW4, you know, it's not translucent as it says it is. It's semi at best. So anyway, just keep playing around, and then, because again, we're just trying to figure out what we have here. That just because one's translucent or it's not, or one's opaque or it's not, or semi, it doesn't matter. I mean, they're all just totally, they have their own purposes and usefulnesses, and, you know, so it's just, they're all good. It's just, we just want to know what they do before we start using them. So it doesn't matter how they label them, you know, on here. What matters is what do they look like on here. So that is what we're going to keep doing. So anyway, just kind of wanted to show you kind of where we're at. I'm going to, and then also just give you a tip. If your palette starts getting too messy, just kind of get it wet and dry and suck up some of the excess, so you have some room to paint. Again, you don't want to just rinse all this paint out, because you don't want to lose all this paint that you've already put in here. By the way, just kind of a review so far. I'm really liking these paints. I think they're nice so far. I like them. I give them a 9 out of 10. Okay, so I'll give you a final review at the end, but I think I like them so far. All right, so at this point I finished the chart, and I'm happy with it. It was actually a really fun experiment. You know, just, it's very relaxing. You just kind of put on some music or something and just kind of mix each color and get to kind of experiment and kind of see like different, even what different mixtures of the same two paints can look like. And so this was just a fun experiment, and hopefully you guys enjoy this too. And it's very informative as well. And you'll save this. And so if you're ever worrying, like, or wondering like how to mix a certain color or something, you're like, oh, how do I get that certain green? You can kind of look, oh, I like that green, or whatever, or I like how those two colors can even break apart a little bit. And it's like, okay, so I can use those, or, you know, I want to make a nice gray sky. Like what should I use for that? And so you're looking kind of for your different grays, and you can kind of play around and see what was working. So hopefully you guys have fun with this. This other section in here, I don't think I'm going to do it in the video, but what I was planning on doing was just masking off a section in here and just doing some experiments. In fact, well, what the heck, let's just do some right now. And just to kind of familiar yourself with, like, you know, I don't even know what I'm doing, just kind of putting some paint on there, just so you can kind of experience like what happens when you can. Sometimes people put paint on really thin like this, it's very weak. Some people put it on strong, some people put it on stronger. Don't put it on too much stronger than that, where it's like straight out of the tube. But you know what we're doing here, part of what we're doing is just learning just how to mix paint and put paint on paper. And so you know, one of the fun things too is like now we're get to mix some of these, and just to kind of see what what happens when it's kind of like the wet on wet. And hopefully you're kind of doing maybe some of this in here as well. But, you know, anyway, so you can kind of just do little dots, and you can mix colors that way. I did that in little areas. And again, like when we were talking about like charging, what does it look like to drop another color into a particular area? Well, it's just like, and so you can just kind of experiment with your colors and just to see what happens when you, I mean, this is valuable research and it's fun. So, you know, just try to enjoy and, you know, see what different color combinations look. And you might find out that I don't want to do that again. Or more likely, you'll just say, when can I use that? You know, nice kind of earthy, different tones in there. You can kind of even play around with like a sky. Hopefully you guys were kind of taking notes, or at least mental notes as you're doing this to kind of figure out what these different like color combinations do. Like this ultramarine blue, you can kind of grab that and then grab some of this burnt sienna in some of these areas, and you know, these can make really wonderful skies. See, but you don't know that until you just start mixing it and playing around. So anyway, hopefully you guys had fun. Keep playing with your colors, and we'll check on you and see you next time. Okay, take care. Bye.